I, Kenshi Takahashi, want to be the greatest fighter to ever exist.
There were a lot of elements of Kenshi that just worked. He's that wandering samurai warrior type.
This is my fight.
The idea of him being the younger character that the old Sub-Zero could take under his wings was really appealing to us.
This is the first time that we get to dive into his backstory, how he turned blind, how he became such a great warrior. It's such a great underdog story.
A blind swordsman is not new in terms of martial arts tropes, but a telekinetic blind swordsman is a different story.
Kenshi is one of those characters that was introduced later on in the series. He wasn't there for the first or second game. For this film, we took a different path with the subject matter in going outside of kind of what had been established in the video games. When we started thinking about this almost as an alternate reality version of Mortal Kombat, where we're in this post-apocalyptic world.
When he shows up in Deadly Alliance, he's just an iconic-looking character, and obviously he reverberates throughout Mortal Kombat. He's always on top lists.
His distinctive moves involve the use of his sword, Sento. His fatality move involved him using his telekinesis, popping out the eyeballs of his opponents, which is always a fun, quirky attribute, or worse.
His telekinetic ability to punch somebody, pull somebody, or choke somebody are awesome, but then you get into the fatalities, and as the games progress, there's fatalities where he's using his sword like a windmill to chop somebody up into like little tiny bits. There's this one he uses where he's able to telekinetically grab somebody and smash them against the game camera. He's super powerful, but because the way that they wrote him and play him, he's also that kind of like reserved martial artist, kind of like Japanese style of just like tiny punches and very controlled, and he does it even with his telekinesis.
He needs the blindfold, he's got the red armor. Our take on it was, well, if he's a traveling warrior that's gone all over the wasteland with the purpose of testing himself in battle, he's fought all these different fights. So he's not symmetrical in his design, and he's got the big blindfolded shoulder pad, which is, of course, very obvious foreshadowing. So he sort of picked up these things along the way when they don't maybe necessarily quite fit together. In the game, he's very tactical and clean. In our world, it's not like that. It's rough.
All that great material was just sitting there for us to address in our movie. Adapting Kenshi for this movie wasn't as difficult, and nor is it as far-fetched or far from the source material. There are elements that you want to pull in because Kenshi's story hasn't been told in animated form or in live-action form. We don't want to just make up a new story.
I am half the man I once was.
Kenshi's story is different in the sense that it's set in a different place within the timeline, but it's very much the storyline from the game. We took as much of the lore as we could, even though we were doing a story set outside of the main lore of Mortal Kombat.
When he grabs the sword, especially the way that we adapt it in this film, there's a certain amount of sight that he gains from it. And it's almost ethereal in nature. He's kind of a weird radar sense. And so not only does it grant him that sight, but it also grants him the courage.
I think they're very timeless characters because here you have Kenshi needing to accomplish his mission, and then it's at a period of life where Sub-Zero is just, Kuai Liang, he's not feeling it first. I just want to be left alone. But then I think as they grow together within this story, that's the stuff that juiced me up. And for me, it's turning that kind of into tough love, and then slowly going into true friendship.
Because of you, I have some sense of honor again.
We definitely mapped out the voice journey of Kenshi. No, I'm just looking for a challenge. You guys will have to do until I find one. We had him younger and arrogant and a lot more playful in the beginning. Ladies. And then as he goes through this journey, He gets disciplined and learns and grows. And by the end of it, he becomes honorable, stronger, more respectful character.
When we got to the third act where Kenshi is killing hundreds of Black Dragon, turns out it actually ended up being larger than either of the other two films, and probably both of them combined. The fun thing about these Mortal Kombat films is coming up with funny and more gruesome gags during these fight sequences. You have to have great storyboard artists that bring ideas to the table to begin with.
The Lin Kuei taught you more than fighting.
The way I write action generally, it is very stream of consciousness, and I just write what I see in terms of large-scale action and violence. What's great about working on an animated project is because animation is so incredibly collaborative, and especially these Mortal Kombat movies, I will write a lot of action. The storyboard guys can take it or leave it, but it might be a springboard onto something. Well, our guys are obviously all high divers. The springboard, every time I send it in, and then a year and a half later, Rick's like, hey, you want to see some of the animation? And I'm screaming because it's like 1,000% better, and it's 1,000% more violent.
We're doing traditional animation. We're not doing what they do in the video games, where this very realistic sort of look to the CG. We wanted to still be kinetic in our use of the camera during those sequences. Those are tricky camera moves to pull off in traditional animation. A lot of times, people will shy away from stuff like that. But to me, I'm just like, let's go for it.
What's cool about Kenshi and where his arc ends, it definitely feels like the prologue. He's somebody that has the skills and ability and humility and learn from the mistakes of Sub-Zero and learn from the mistakes of himself, that he could go into this wasteland. He could right wrongs wherever he finds them.
He's become the master, and now he's heading off to do justice in the world. He's gone from being just the wandering samurai that's trying to prove himself to being the guy that wants to go out there and help. And I love where we leave him because it leaves a door open to take any direction you want.
I am Kenshi Takahashi.